three terrifying stories that took place during school lockdown. It was just another dull day in calculus class. Except it was Friday, 7th period. That meant the weekend was just around the corner. And the spring break was finally within the reach. The anticipation was obvious. Students fidget in their seats, counting down the minutes. Unlike some of my friends who had tested in other subjects, our teacher had nothing planned for the day. So, in his usual laid-back manner, he decided to have some fun and pulled up a trivia website for us to play. We were in the middle of a brand logo quiz, tossing out answers when it happened, something I never forget. Just after my friend answered the question, one I remembered vividly. Adidas. The school intercom cracked to life. The voice on the other end was that the dean, but he wasn't his usual composed self. He sounded panicked. His words rushed and uneven. What he said next sent a cold wave through my body. This is not a drill. Teachers, initiate lockdown. Proceed immediately. A shiver ran down my spine as a goosebumps spread my arms. Even our easygoing teacher looked rattled as he rushed to turn off the lights and motioned for us to huddle in the back room. The classroom fell into complete silence. Minutes passed, each dragging on for what felt like an eternity. Then, the low electronic hum from the panel in the back of the room suddenly ceased. The school had cut the power. That's when we knew this wasn't just serious, it was dangerous. Then we heard it. A man screaming at the top of his lungs, his voice echoing through the hallway. The sound of metal slamming followed. He was punching the lockers as he passed, his rage filling every corner of the corridor. Two girls in the class started crying, their quiet sobs making the fear even more suffocating. The footsteps got closer, the banging grew louder, and then suddenly he was at our door. I held my breath as the handle rattled violently, the door shaking under the force of his pounding fists. Then came out the words that made my stomach drop. "Open up!" One of the crying girls let out a terrified shriek, and then pounding on the door became more frantic. My teacher motioned for silence, his face pale, every second stretched unbearably long, the air thick with terror. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the banging stopped, and then just the screams faded as the footsteps receded down the hallway. 10 minutes passed, but it felt like hours. Then the intercom cracked again. The dean's voice returned, shaky but composed, explaining what happened. Some unstable man had entered the school and attacked the woman at the front desk, forcing her to flee for safety, and he had looking for more. The terrified screams and panicked murmurs of the staff painted a grim picture. No one was sure if the intruder was armed. The school, lacking security cameras or a proper protection system, had been an open target for an event like this. Despite searching for every corridor and classroom, the staff failed to locate him. With no other option, the principal instructed teachers to resume their lessons, ensuring all doors remained locked and forbidding students from leaving for any reason. As the day faded into evening, a janitor working the night shift made a horrifying discovery. In one of the storage closets tucked away at the farthest end of the building, he found a man curled up, fast asleep. Rumors spread like a wildfire. The man had a revolver protruding from his pocket, a Magnum 44. Speculation arose that the janitor might have made an error, perhaps leaving the closet door ajar or making an unexpected noise, as by the time the police arrived, the mysterious figure had vanished without a trace. To this day, my classmates have no idea if the man was ever found. Some believe he was apprehended and received the help he desperately needed. Others, however, whispered that he still roams free. Story number 2. The school had 2 separate lunch periods. The first included all 6th graders and part of the 7th grade, while the second was designed for remaining 7th graders and the entirety of the 8th grade. The incident took place in early October on an overcast and drizzly afternoon. During the first lunch period, a series of 4 loud bangs echoed through the campus. Initially, I mistook the sound for thunder, but the immediate shrieks of panic from the cafeteria proved otherwise. Before I could fully process the chaos, security personnel stormed in, barking orders for everyone to rush inside the multipurpose hall. Students waiting in a line for their meals had no choice but to abandon their trays and follow the suit. I joined my friends as we were herded into the massive hall where unease and curiosity filled the air. The back wall of the room was entirely made of glass, offering a full view of the outside. However, before anyone could glimpse what was happening, security scrambled to draw curtains shut. Teachers and staff stationed themselves at every possible exit, ensuring no one left. Among us was Eric, an ever-curious classmate who decided to press one of the staff members for answers. When he returned, his face was pale. "You know the house is right in front of the school?" he asked me. I nodded, a sinking feeling creeping into my stomach. "There's a man barricaded inside one of them. He is threatening to take his own life, and if anyone tries to stop him, he'll take them down with him. The police are negotiating with him right now." The air grew heavier with every passing second. Eric continued in a hushed voice. "They say he was wandering around the school earlier, watching the kids." A collective shudder ran through our group, and then the final, most disturbing piece of news slipped from Eric's lips. He's registered sex offender. The fear in that room was palpable. We remained trapped for over an hour, the minutes stretching into eternity. When authorities finally deemed it safe, we were escorted back to our classrooms, one group at a time. Later, I learned something that made my blood run cold. The man in question lived next to my friend Brandy. She recalled an eerie event from the previous Halloween. How she had seen him standing in his window, carving into his own arm and scrawling a chilling message in his own blood: "Stay away or I make you disappear." At the time, people thought it was just a twisted Halloween prank, but after what happened that day, no one was so sure anymore. As the police secured a school and took the shooter into custody, I stood among the gathered students, trying to catch my breath. My heart was still hammering in my chest and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Mr. Buckley had survived and treat was over, or so I thought. That night, unable to sleep, I kept replying everything in my head, the way the man looked at me. The moment I realized he was the shooter, the deafening gunshot in the basement. Just as I finally started to drift off, my phone buzzed on my nightstand. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was one of my friends checking in, but then it buzzed again and again. I reached for it, my stomach sinking as I read the message from an unknown number. "You should have stayed quiet." My breath hitched. I sat up, feeling the same terror creeping back into my body. My fingers hovered over the screen as another message came through. "This isn't over." A cold chill ran down my spine. The shooter was was caught. He was in custody. So who the hell was texting me? Story number 3. The shadow in the school basement. There is an old school in a town that has stood for over 70 years. The students and teachers came and went, but one thing remained constant: the eerie stories about the basement. For decades, students whispered about the strange noises coming from below. Teachers dismissed it as old pipes creaking or the sound of rats scurrying through the walls. But the janitor, Mr. Callahan, knew the truth. He had worked there for nearly 40 years and had seen things no one else believed. One cold autumn afternoon, a group of students from the drama club had to retrieve old props from the basement storage. Among them was Claire, a skeptical girl who always laughed at the ghost stories. She had the group down the creaky staircase, the air growing colder with each step. The moment they entered, the light flickered. Just old wiring, Claire scoffed, but the others were already uneasy. As they sorted through dusty boxes, a loud bang echoed through the basement. The group froze. "Hello?" one of the students called out. Silence followed, except for the distant dripping of water. Claire walked toward the source of the sound, her flashing beam bouncing off the cracked cement wall. Then she saw it, a shadowy figure, standing at the far end of the room, motionless. At the first, she thought it was a coat rack, but then it moved. The figure had no face, no features, just a tall, dark silhouette that seemed to pulse with dim light around it. A sharp whisper echoed through the room, "Leave!" The others saw it too. Panic set in, and they bolted up the stairs, leaving the props behind. When they reached the hallway, panting, they slammed the basement door shut. But Claire, who had lingered for just a second too long, felt an icy grip on her wrist before she escaped. A bruise appeared there the next day, shaped like long bony fingers. The next morning, Claire asked Mr. Callahan about the basement. He hesitated before finally speaking. "Years ago," he said, "a teacher disappeared down there. They never found her body, only her shoes and a single bloody handprint on the wall. Some say her spirit never left. Others say something else took her place." Claire never went near the basement again, but sometimes when walking past that door, she swore she could hear whispering, and in the dim light of the hallway, a shadow moved where no person stood.